Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. Today we're once again blending a bunch of different ideas together for the sake of experimentation. So before we get to the concoction of madness that is today's project, be sure to leave a like if you enjoy the video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. So recently I found myself with some extra time and decided to beta test an idea that we'll hopefully see here on the channel in the future. The results were something far more coherent than expected. And so today our base game is your standard tower defense. In case you're not familiar, tower defense games are pretty simple. Enemies file in from one side to the other, and players must stop them from reaching that destination. This is done by creating defenses like placing turrets, which can also be upgraded to more powerful turrets to deal with increasingly difficult waves of enemies. But here's the twist. The way players upgrade their turrets in our project is by transforming them into one of many elemental variants. This is done by merging elemental orbs as one would in a merge game. There's a link in the description to a previous project if you would like to know more about merge games, but the gist of the concept is the player matches orbs of similar level and type to create higher level versions. Now there are 3 levels for each element, and an element can only then be applied once it reaches max level. Alternatively, the player can sell any unwanted elements for money, which can then be spent on more turrets. The base elements are water, fire, and earth. The water turret is a faster shooting but overall weaker variant. The fire turret will shoot 3 flaming projectiles with the chance of adding the burn debuff. And the earth turret fires a piercing vine, hurting anything that passes through its deployment. Now here's the other thing. There's more than one twist to this project. Not only can the player merge elements with turrets, but those elements can then be merged with other elements to create even more variations. That's right, we've also added alchemy mechanics to our merge tower defense hybrid. Again, a link to a previous project going more in depth as to what alchemy games are can be found in the description. But the gist of alchemy games is to simply match elements to create new elements. For example, merging water and fire makes steam. And so just the same, merging water and fire will create steam turrets. These turrets are very short ranged but also powerful AoE based turrets that will create damage clouds around them. These clouds can also apply the stun debuff. Merging earth and fire will create the lava turret, and similar to the steam turret, this is another AoE based unit that will surround itself with random burning cracks, which damage enemies foolish enough to step on them and possibly burn them. Merging water with a water turret will create an ice turret. The ice turret will fire 8 short-range projectiles in a flower-like pattern and possibly apply the freeze debuff. An earth turret merged with an earth element will create a stone turret. The stone turret will fire a rock that, when making contact with an enemy, will break off into a number of smaller rocks that can then damage nearby foes. Merging water with a lava turret will create the obsidian turret. The obsidian turret will target a random enemy and drop a giant obsidian rock within their vicinity, causing AoE damage around it. And our final unit can be created by merging fire with obsidian turrets to create Oblivion turrets. Oblivion turrets are basically a stronger, more chaotic version of the Obsidian turrets. They choose a number of various spots on the map, followed by spontaneous explosions in said spots, eliminating any poor souls that might be caught in the booms. Now, in terms of enemies, there is only one enemy type. Their behavior is typical of a tower defense game and simply move from point A to point B, using very basic pathfinding to navigate our randomly generated lanes. The debuffs that they can gain are timer based, so the burn debuff will continuously damage them, the freeze debuff will slow them, and the stun debuff will literally stop enemies in their tracks for a period of time. Defeating enemies is also how the player gains new elemental orbs, which are randomly placed on the board as long as there is room. And what this project may lack in enemy variety, it makes up for in its spawn system. The spawn system is based on a list system and timers. So when a round begins, a blueprint of sorts is generated based on the current level. This blueprint is a list of waves for that round and how long to pause before spawning in the next wave. For example, level 0 is a single wave of 10 enemies, and level 1 is 3 waves of 5 enemies per wave. By level 5, which for the sake of time was the cutoff, all waves will consist of 4 waves of 20 enemy units per wave. So, despite the fact that we've only got one enemy type for this showcase, theoretically the amount of waves and their variants are almost infinite, and each wave can be kept track of via the HUD, where a little bar will appear showing the progress for the current round, which isn't entirely accurate because math is hard. So yeah, I made a tower defense game with both merge and alchemy features that somehow actually work pretty well together. Granted, there's a lot that's still left to be determined. Again, this was just a jam project that only had a few hours put into it. The only thing I've done since was add graphics for the sake of the video not being a bunch of shapes, being on a blank background. Generally speaking though, this was a great exercise that allowed me to not only take another crack at the alchemy idea, but also the opportunity to build a more optimized and useful merge system. And as much as I would love to keep working on this one, just putting together a small handful of examples was enough to know that feature creep would definitely become a thing. The possibility for turret types is almost endless with the inclusion of merging and alchemy. And honestly, with how many times I've made and remade Plants vs. Zombies style games, it's probably best I don't try again. So if you would like to see more tower defense stuff, like my Plants vs. Zombies game creation endeavors, a link to a playlist can also be found in the description. So anyway, what do you think of this mashup? What elemental turret would you add and what would it do? And I'm also legitimately trying to find a game that does this, so if you know of any, please let me know. As always, be sure to leave your thoughts, ideas, and even stories about your own recent dev journeys in the comments. And finally, if you enjoy what I do here, supporting me on Patreon will help me keep doing it. You can also net yourself some great exclusive content and game downloads, as well as early access to the Dev Diary videos before they're released on YouTube. But with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.